Hello everyone, welcome to StudyIQ English. Well, in the last few days, so many developments have happened, which are clearly showing the crumbling importance of global bodies like the United Nations. We have seen in the news how US and Israel last year in 2025 had also raised a question about the authority of United Nations Charter Article 2.4. which prohibits one country from taking a military action or a threat against another. But it has happened this time as well. In fact, now the Israel and US versus Iran war has assumed a very dangerous proportion. It's spreading everywhere across West Asia. Now we are also seeing a regionally coordinated fight as well as utilization of so many kinds of cheap warfare, including drones and something that we call as overwhelming attack techniques that Iran is employing. At the same time, how expensive and extremely sophisticated missile interceptor technologies are being used by US, UAE as well as Israel. Now, in this entire mess, there has been a major problem, and the problem corresponds to the Strait of Hormuz. We know that there are certain strategic choke points across the world, one such being the Strait of Hormuz, which lies overlapping with Iran. Today, as US and Israel are doing attacks on Iran, the leader of Iran, the supreme leader, Mr. Khamenei, has already died. There is an ongoing fracture within Iran's own political system. We know Iran had been witnessing one of the largest such civil wars since 1979 Islamic Revolution. Now, in this backdrop today, Iran has also chosen to close the Strait of Hormuz, this narrow strategic choke point from where about 20% of world's liquefied natural gas and about, say, a major part of more than about 25 to 30% of global oil trade passes annually. If this gets shut, is there a possibility that there is going to be a sudden surge in oil price which will make oil imports practically unaffordable? Now, all this is happening at a time when India itself was trying to reduce its dependence on Russian oil, dependence on Russian Ural oil. But then, will we have to go back to Russia as a major oil supplier? Given that with Strait of Hormuz closing, India will also face oil scarcity. In fact, many more countries. Now, interesting thing is that Indian government has recently said that we have about 74 days of total oil reserve right now, but ideally, it should be about 90 days of oil security. The government says nothing to worry about, things are manageable, but in future, this will definitely change the geopolitics about oil as we talk about this very crucial strategic choke point here known as the Strait of Hormuz. Now, in every class, I keep reminding my students about, say, the Panama Canal, the Suez Canal, Strait of Malacca, Bab el-Mandeb, as well as Hormuz. Now, Hormuz is right here. You should by heart know the map of West Asia. I have already taken lectures on Yemen, the ongoing proxy war in Yemen, which Saudi wants to make ceasefire upon. Saudi wants stability because of the massive land border. I have mentioned about the Asir mountain range somewhere here, this region. We know that in Yemen, if Saudi has stakes, so do countries like UAE and Iran in the form of southern Yemen. That's a very important choke point, related region in the world. And now we see all the way up to UAE, where UAE is kind of poking into the territory of Iran. You find Strait of Hormuz. Look how narrow it is. And today, Iran chooses to close that. Of course, because Iran is under severe siege, severe attack. What are the repercussions? What is Strait of Hormuz? As you saw in the map, it is between Iran and Oman and UAE right here. Now, map-based questions are very common in UPSC, so you should remember the map thoroughly. Right, now this is about only 33 kilometers wide. It is very narrow and hence very vulnerable. If you remember last year also, it was owing to the Houthi militants, which have a very strong stronghold in northern Yemen, supported from Iran. In the today's newspaper also, we saw how Iran also finances many non-state actors of terror like Houthi, Hezbollah. Similarly, northern Yemen has been a major area of Houthi rebellion, Houthi militancy financed by Iran. And last year also they were making a lot of menace in this region. Hence what happened? There was a fear that Houthi militancy could lead to the close down of Bab el-Mandeb, another important strategic choke point. And today finally Iran has closed this one, the more important one, Hormuz. Look at the volume of trade. About 20 million barrels of oil pass from here every day, about 1/5 of the total global crude oil flow. At the same time, who are the major suppliers whose oil flows from here into other nations? These are Saudi Arabia, Iran, Kuwait, UAE and Qatar. Qatar has also been in the news because after all, Qatar has one of the largest American military base, the Al Udeid Air Base. Today, Iran is doing retaliatory strikes on all American military bases in West Asia. A war which began within Iran is now everywhere. Even countries like Kuwait, UAE, Yemen, everywhere we can see firing, war, missiling. So that's becoming common. If these are the major suppliers, all the OPEC nations, the Gulf countries, which are the major importers of this oil, you have India, China, Japan, South Korea. So this is almost like a transitional area. Whether it's Bab el-Mandeb, whether it is the Strait of Hormuz, from where oil comes from this Gulf region, all the way up to Asian, South Asian economies. Now, do remember, India, China are gigantic economies. India is the 4th largest economy already and imports about more than 80% of its crude necessity. And that's why demand becomes a very important reason why Gulf oil is extremely precious. Today, with the close down of this choke point, what happens? It leads to a disruption in supply chain, and that's why we say that Strait of Hormuz is a very strategic, important maritime choke point. Now, with war in this region, what is going on? Look at India now. India is importing about 85% of its crude oil needs and 50% of natural gas is also imported. Strait of Hormuz is a very vital supply chain lane and a large portion of this comes from Middle East through the Strait of Hormuz. Today it is blocked. That means India's import bill, India's oil and energy security are also under threat. A small example here says if the oil price shoots by $1 per barrel, it leads to an increase of $1.4 billion of India's total import bill. That will definitely lead to a current account deficit. We have seen previously also. Most of the countries of the West Asia, when you see the bilateral trade with India, India experiences a negative trade balance, all because of oil and petroleum related products. What is the alternative that we have? Now we know that India and China, including countries like say Brazil, Turkey, these were the major importers of Russian Ural oil. I agree. Russian Ural oil is the bitter crude oil that has a high sulfur content, but you also know that India and China are experts. We have refineries which can deal into that kind of oil very easily. Even in terms of viscosity, our refineries deal with the level of this oil supply flow, this oil flow speed. But Russia was sanctioned by US and Europe. We know owing to these sanctions, the value of Russian crude also dipped down. In a way, it was good because now China could buy more, India could buy more. That's the reason both these are the top importers of Russian oil. But what about India? India experienced 50% tariff punishment for buying Russian oil. Recently, American President Mr. Trump says if you reduce your oil import from Russia, we will also reduce your tariff from 50 to 18%. India and US are already doing a bilateral trade negotiation called the Early Harvest Trade Agreement. If it is signed up, finally, that means India will have to negotiate and compromise and reduce dependence on Russian oil. But today, when Strait of Hormuz is closing down, what options does India realistically have? India has no choice. We possibly may have to once again increase tremendously our import of Russian oil. Why not? It's cheaper. Its viscosity and sulfur content is manageable to India. The shipping lane, the entire transportation cost is also more affordable as compared to the Gulf oil and as compared to the US Texas oil. So therefore, India says, I will have to buy more oil from Russia. And now I can justify this to US saying that the Middle East war has increased the volatility of oil supply. It means a disruption in supply chain. So why should I not buy the cheaper Russian oil? Because after all, it's a question of security for India. Now, when I'm talking about the Russian crude oil, I do hope and I expect that all my students will also remember the Druzhba pipeline. I have spoken about the Druzhba pipeline, the Nord Stream. Please remember those for the exam. Now, what does that mean for us today? Now, when you talk about crude, the oil, the basic material that you take from the earth, that you excavate from the earth. You know, it's thick, it's viscous, it has some sulfur content, except of course very fine grade ones like US, that is the Texas oil. Now, sweet oil, what do you mean by that? Sweet oil means where sulfur content is less than 0.5%, very small content of sulfur, whereas sour or bitter means more than 0.5%. If you look at the Ural Russian oil, it comes under this category. But what about the West Asian countries? Can you tell me in the comment box which countries among the OPEC also are known for sweet oil and which have a very high sulfurized oil? That's an important question. But sour crude oil is also a very difficult thing to mine. Whenever you rush it through your oil refineries, you will have to have special technique in order to make it more flowable, more fluvial, more fluid, as well as you will have to then refine it so that it can finally be used into other kind of machineries. But when the question of Ural oil comes, India has refineries just like China that have advanced technology, hydro desulfurization units. We can manage that. But when it comes to Venezuelan oil, which Mr. Trump may try to impose on us, India is not sure, because that has a high viscosity. It's a very, very heavy oil, apart from being highly sulfuric. So there we are not very sure. Right now our complex refineries can although successfully process the Russian oil. So shall we keep buying more of that, or will US angle once again stop us from freely and independently taking care of our strategic energy needs and keep on taking oil from Russia? Now that's a question that we are yet to see. A quick practice question here. With reference to Strait of Hormuz, look at these statements. 1. It connects the Persian Gulf with the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea. 2. Nearly 1/5 of global oil trade passes through it. 3. It lies between Iran and Saudi Arabia, and for a large share of oil passing through it is designed for Asian countries. Which of these statements are valid? Quite easy. But then if you need the answer and more such important points to be covered, you could join a Telegram community. Here's the QR code for the same. We keep doing questions and share important notes, initiatives at StudyIQ. All shall be covered here. A quick reminder, the festival of Holi is right around us now. It's just approaching. But do remember, 6th of March is when? Until when? We are providing the Holi Hangama sale and giving you a flat 55% off on all our courses, whether it's 27 or 28. That means all GS subjects with books, materials and guidance available at flat 55 off. At the same time, if you use code SPLIVE, it really becomes a festival gift for you because more discount is possible. So enroll today because the sale ends on 6th of March. Thank you so much.